What's up everybody, you're watching the From WordPress to Statamic YouTube channel. My name is Michael. Today I want to start talking about importing data. Now this is a pretty big topic, so we can't cover everything in just one video. So for this one, we're just going to start with something basic, and we're going to upload a CSV file that I've exported from a WordPress project and map them to our blog posts here in this test install. As you can see, I only have 3 posts here for my blog. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to my add-ons and I'm going to look for the importer, and then we're going to import stuff through uploading from a CSV. So I'm going to find the importer, and there it is. I'm going to grab that, and I'm just going to go ahead and composer require. Now there's a note over here in dark mode. It's a little bit tough to read. You might want to run PHP artisan migrate if you don't have a database configured at all. If you set up your site with the Statamic CLI, it's already there, so you shouldn't have a problem. But if not, you might need to run this so that there's an SQLite database for it to manage the imports. Now I'm going to go over to the utilities, and I'm going to select my importer. Now I'm going to create a new one called Posts from WordPress, and I'm going to upload a CSV file that I already have prepared. And I'm going to select for entries, I'm going to choose my blog collection, and it maps to the blog blueprint, which I already have configured. Now, if you have multiple blueprints that you can choose from in your more complicated setup, keep this in mind. Now I'm just going to hit save and continue. Okay, now that that refresh is done, you can see I've got my blueprint fields on the left and the data from the import on the right. And this is just a drop down which gives me all the fields from the CSV. So I can pick the title, for example, to map to the title, the content. And if you're familiar with the WordPress block editor, you can see that this structure with the HTML comment there, this is how it saves block editor fields in the database. And for published, I'm going to select status. And generally that is in the form of a string, where if it's true, it is publish, and if it's draft, if it's false. And then I'm going to go for slug. And the category, this is my taxonomies here. So I've got this category field, and I'm just going to use the title. In this case, I want to create a term when it's missing. I'm going to select the date. I'm going to skip the author and some of this other stuff for now, but for my image, this is my featured image. So I'm going to search for image featured. That's the one that I want. And I'm going to download it if it's missing, and I'm going to map that to my blog folder in my assets. Otherwise, I'm going to skip the rest of this for now. I'm just going to select slug to make sure it's using the slug to make sure each post is unique, right, rather than the title, which maybe I have posts with the same title for some reason. But the slug should always be unique. Okay, and now I'm just going to make sure, I'm just going to save that before we do anything. And before I run it, I want to make sure that if I go to my blueprint, for example, and I look at my blog, and I go to my sidebar where I have the image, I want to make sure that I have an asset container already selected for this image. If you have images in your main content, you're going to want to do this as well for that field. The other one that I want to look at is in my field sets. The blog content with sets is a barred field. And I want to make sure I have all of these things enabled in case I have these things in my HTML from my WordPress entry, or else I might run into some problems. And again, if there's images there, I want to make sure I have an asset container selected. It's not selected by default, so you'll have to do this manually. I've also got sets here, but we're not going to worry about that in this video. For a more complicated import, you might want to configure some sets to map some more intricate data. Okay, so let's go back to our utilities importer. Okay, so we have this work in progress. Now I'm going to click save and run. And you can see you've got that blue bar going at the top. And over here in my content folder, collections, blog. Now this folder is growing because all these things are being imported. You can see more and more coming in as we speak. So I've got about 100 entries here, and it looks like we're just about done. So in my other tab, I'm going to navigate to my blog in the dashboard. And there we go. Now we've got all these posts, and you can see we've got the image mapped from that featured image field already. So I was to go back to my front end. I'm going to refresh, and there's all of my categories, and here are all my posts with the featured images. And there it is. Okay, this all looked way easier than it probably should. You might run into some problems. with your configuration. So do make sure, for example, you have those assets containers selected. Make sure you have the right asset locations, specify the right drivers, all that kind of thing to make sure that everything's hunky-dory before you actually get into doing your imports, or else you might run into some problems. In another video, we can look at how we can do something a little bit more complicated by hooking into some of the core blocks for WordPress and doing something custom. That's all for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you haven't already, sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description. Catch you next time.